Merry Christmas. I hope you are having a wonderful day. This video should come out on November 29th. We are 2 days away from December 1st. As I said in a few other previous videos there, it's been Christmas season in my house for quite some time now. My wife decorates very early. But I wanted to make a few videos leading up to Christmas Day to talk about Christmas and to encourage you in the Christian celebration of the coming of our Lord. What a wonderful season it is. What a wonderful time of the year it is. And there's a lot of things that we can do to emphasize the celebration of the coming of Christ, the final receiving, well, not final, but the anticipated receiving of the Messiah and the start of God building his church here on earth. What a wonderful thing it is. I'm going to say right now, my plan is to make 4 videos, and the last 3, it could be for the full family. I'll say right here, this one I would like to be for adults. So if you are a child watching this, hit pause and go tell your parents that this video is not for you, and go play with some toys or do something else, make some snowflakes or a Christmas card or do something. But just some aspects of the video that are more parent oriented. And so if you're a parent, this is for you. If you're not a parent, but you're not a child, then this video is also for you as we get into the Christmas season. Every year, and I'll give a couple seconds here. If you're a child, please go do something else. Every year as Christmas comes around, I get a sense of excitement. I really enjoy the Christmas season, Christmas Day, going and getting our tree, and after a little bit of time, I start to enjoy the Christmas music that comes out, and the Christmas hymns and stuff. I love them, but the other wonderful Winterland and all that stuff, over some time it grows on me, and as the house gets decorated, it's nice, it's cozy. A good mug of hot apple cider, I love it. It's wonderful. But every year I give a warning, a correction, a little bit of a prod, and I feel like I've gotten stronger and stronger over the years. And if you disagree with me, you disagree with me, and that's fine. We can have that conversation. But it comes out of concern, and it comes out of a desire to see the holiday and the season and our activities to fully glorify God and to celebrate the coming of Christ. And so I want to first talk about the real Christmas. I can remember reading a report from one of my friends who lives elsewhere in the world as a missionary, of him going into the local mall, and it was odd to him because it seemed like a North American mall. There was reindeer, and there was Christmas trees, and there was Santa Claus, and this was a culture that was just really starting to celebrate Christmas. It was a new holiday to them as they had become more and more westernized. However, there was not one element of Christianity. There was nothing about the birth of Christ, and it was just purely a secular, materialistic holiday. And I have made the argument over the years, and I will continue to, because I think it's worthwhile to make, that there's 2 holidays here that share the same name. There's Christmas, the Christ, or the Mass of Christ. There's the celebration of Christ and his coming, and there's certain elements of the celebration that are shared between the 2 holidays. But there's this focus on him, and symbolism, as we're going to talk about in the coming weeks, that points to him. But then there's this secular, worldly version where they've taken Christmas and they've hijacked it. And even how over the years, elements that once pointed to Christ and pointed to a Christian heritage and a Christian history have become perverted and turned into something that actually takes away the glory from God. And so, what I want to encourage you to do as an adult, as a parent, is to analyze your Christmas traditions, to analyze your celebration of Christmas, and check if there's any fluff. Some fluff might not be damaging, but some of it probably needs to be trimmed back, pulled back, and reevaluate, why is this part of my celebration? What I mean by fluff is if you can think about, and I've used this example before, a student who needs to write a paper. Maybe they need to write a paper on the history of Santa Claus, and they've written a great paper, and then they realize that they're 150 words short of the required amount of words. And so they just start putting fluff in there and expanding thoughts, but not in depth, just fluff, right? And what happens is you have a paper that was actually quite good, that becomes so crowded, it becomes a pain to read, it becomes crowded, and it becomes not as good of a paper. For any students out there, just turn the paper in 150 words short. As someone who marked paper for content, that's better than just meeting the mark, but having a fluffy paper. And so there's certain things in our Christmas traditions that don't point to Christ, but actually point away from him, and can cause some confusion, I think. And the big one, in my opinion, is Santa Claus. Santa Claus, based on St. Nicholas, this historical figure who died many, many, many years ago. But I can tell you right now, if we were able to somehow resurrect St. Nicholas and show him what has happened with his name, that we've created this elf-like creature who can go around and some say can pause time and go around and deliver gifts to boys and girls, and the hyper-materialism that comes with it, and the fact that he's the center of the Christmas celebration, he would be appalled. St. Nicholas, a man who cared about doctrine, who cared about truth, and who cared about emphasizing Christ, he would be drastically appalled at this. And so my recommendation is to not include Santa Claus in your Christmas celebrations. And what I mean by that, like with my children, they know that St. Nicholas was someone who existed in history and has now died. And I've instructed them that although they know this, other kids are told that he's real, and it's not our job to tell them otherwise. A bit of debate on my heart if it is my job or not as a pastor of these children, but I'm going to lead their parents and allow them to make that decision. And so, but my recommendation is that you don't do that. You can tell them about the history of Santa Claus if you want, but I think it pulls away from the true focus. And so my recommendation is for you to make family Christian Christmas traditions and memories that reflect Christ. And we're going to talk a lot about the symbolism of the tree and the lights and stars and angels and all that stuff in the coming weeks. But I'd strongly say to move away from that. One of the reasons is, and I thought of this as a hypothetical, but then I heard that it actually became a reality in someone's life in the last number of years, where we tell our children that Santa Claus comes and he brings gifts. And we tell our children that when they put their tooth under the pillow, this fairy comes and replaces it with a coin. And that the Easter Bunny comes and brings them eggs or hides eggs or whatever it is people that do the Easter Bunny say. And then what happens is as the child grows up, they figure some stuff out. And maybe someone at school spills the beans, or they just simply get older and start to ask more questions, or they realize that it's impossible for someone to go around with flying reindeer and deliver gifts to the entire world in a matter of hours. But they come to this, and there's this thing of, well, my parents told me that Santa was real, and he's not. My parents told me that the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny and the Sandman and whatever other things that the parents tell their children is real, and it's not. Um, what about God? And that might sound like a leap to you, but it's happened. And I can see the train of thought happening. And as people who celebrate truth and who emphasize the importance of not lying and not leading our children into deception, I think that's exactly what that is. And it's different if you tell your children, hey, we're going to pretend, and how cute that is, kind of thing. And that's fine. Like when the elf on the shelf thing. If your kid knows that you're the one moving it, and they're just imagination, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. The same way if you're playing Lego and your person's moving around, like you're using your imagination. There's a healthy element to that. But when we actually mislead our children and deceive them into thinking something is true when it's not, and we know it's not, and it's kind of entertaining for us, I think there should be a caution there, and I would urge you to have a caution about that. And so my encouragement is to make family traditions that honor Christ, that Jesus Christ would be the center point of your Christmas tradition, and that as you go through celebrations and gatherings and moments of Christmas with your child, as an individual, with others, that you would make the effort to highlight Christ and focus on Him. One of the things you can do there Christmas morning, when everyone's sitting down and you got your coffee and the kids are there, and before you open gifts, kind of thing, is to read over the Christmas story. I think that's a fantastic tradition. As you go through Christmas dinners, to spend time in prayer, as you play Christmas songs in your house, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and all of this other stuff. I'm not huge on it. It's not the end of the world. But if you can make a playlist, if you use YouTube Music or I almost said Strava, whatever the other streaming music services are, whatever you use to play music in your house, if you can make an intentional playlist of Christmas songs, Hark the Herald, the Angels Sing, O Silent Night, the First Noel, and that's the end of my thought process when it comes to songs. I'm not very musical. But to have songs that focus on Christ, and let those be the ones that you play through your house. One great tradition that I encourage you to do as an individual, and if you have a family, if you have a spouse, or simply you have a friend, to do as a group, to come together. And my plan is for my family to come together and for me to read to them, as the father of the house, a chapter of Luke a day throughout the month of December. There's 24 chapters in the book of Luke. And so by the end, it's not a mystery of who Christ is. You've read the story, you've refreshed it in your mind, and you come into your Christmas Eve church service, wonderful tradition, and Christmas Day, knowing Christ at a deeper level and having a better understanding. So read a chapter of Luke a day. Fantastic tradition. As you get your Christmas tree, and we're going to talk more about the symbolism, but talk about how the history of it, and you can talk about how it's upward and it points to Christ, and well, why do we put a star on top of our tree? Why do we put an angel on top of our tree? These various things. And the lights that we put out in the midst of a dark night. I'm getting ahead of myself. But the symbolism that we have in our Christmas traditions points to Christ. At least it should point to Christ. And so my encouragement is, to start off, is to be very, very intentional in your Christmas traditions, your Christmas celebrations, that they honor Christ and they reflect Christ. And some people might think I'm making too big of a deal about this, but let me put it to you this way. We're throwing you a giant birthday party, and we're all sitting there in the living room, and there's a pile of gifts, and there's all this stuff going on, and all of a sudden, bring yourself down to a child's age for this analogy, Your mother comes into the room holding a birthday cake that's lit with candles, and everyone starts singing happy birthday. But instead of singing, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear, your name, it's someone else's name. And then they bring that cake in front of someone else, and that guy blows out your candles, and he runs his finger through the icing, and he eats it, and he gets the first slice, and everyone's focused on him, and there you are on your birthday. Wouldn't that be a little odd? Wouldn't that be a little weird? If this is a celebration of Christ, if Christ is the reason for this season, should he not be at the foundation and the center and the front of every part of our celebration this year? Think about that. That's my encouragement to you. If you have any questions, if you want to talk through it, if you want to talk about how you can be more intentional, or you're saying, hey, we do this thing, what do you think about that? Reach out to me. I would love to have those conversations with you. And the next 3 videos, I'm going to be very, not corrective, but happy about it, and Merry Christmas and jolly and all that stuff. But I want to make this point, and I'm probably going to make this point every single year, because I think it's important that we keep Christ at the forefront. And I think there's some elements of modern worldly Christmas that we just need to reject as Christians, because it's pulling away, it's robbing God of the glory that he deserves. So have a wonderful Christmas season, and in all your Christmas celebrations, may you honor God in all that you do.